The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness between stars. A massive station where hundreds of alien species gathered to keep peace in the galaxy. Inside the main hall, thousands of representatives sat in their designated sections, their various forms ranging from the insect-like Vryn to the crystalline Solari. At the center platform stood Ambassador Deho, a middle-aged human with graying hair and calm eyes. He had represented Earth and its colonies for 15 years, known throughout the Council for his patience and careful words. Today's meeting was about mining rights. The Krell Dominion claimed that humans had no right to the colony world called New Jeju. The planet had been empty when human ships arrived 30 years ago. Humans had spent decades terraforming the dead rock into a living world, with breathable air and flowing water. 50,000 human families now called it home. But Council Enforcer Prime Velthak insisted that Krell owned it first. The large reptilian being stood across from Deho, his scales gleaming red under the chamber lights. Velthak was known for his short temper and brutal methods. Many species feared him. Deho remained calm as he activated a holographic display. The historical records show that no species has claimed this system for over 10,000 years. The Krell archives themselves confirm this. Here, you can see the survey data. Blue light filled the air between them, showing ancient star maps and exploration logs. Velthak's eyes narrowed. His clawed hand moved to his belt, where a neural disruptor hung. You dare call Krell records false? You dare question our ancient rights? I question nothing, Deho replied softly. I simply present facts. The facts show that New Jeju belongs to humanity by right of discovery and development. We have broken no laws. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some species nodded in agreement with the human. Others watched nervously, knowing the Krell did not accept defeat easily. The Council Arbiter, a floating being of pure energy, tried to call for order. Velthak's hand closed around his weapon. Humans always hide behind words, always pretending to be weak and peaceful. I see through your lies. There are no lies here, Deho said. Only truth. Something in the human's calm voice made Velthak lose control. Perhaps it was the way Deho refused to show fear. Perhaps it was the knowledge that he was wrong, and everyone knew it. Whatever the reason, Velthak drew his neural disruptor and fired. The weapon's purple beam struck Deho in the chest. The ambassador's body jerked as electricity coursed through his nervous system. He collapsed to the platform floor, blood beginning to pool beneath his head. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some representatives screamed. Others simply stared in shock. Medical teams rushed forward with floating stretchers and alien healing devices. They worked frantically over Deho's body, but everyone could see it was too late. The neural disruptor had been set to lethal power. The human ambassador's brain had hemorrhaged. Within minutes, the medical chief announced what everyone already knew. Ambassador Deho was dead. The first human killed by direct. The council action lay on the chamber floor, his blood spreading across the white stone. Deputy Ambassador Jiwoo, a young woman who had worked with Deho for 5 years, stood frozen at the human delegation seats. Tears ran down her face, but she did not make a sound. The council arbiter declared an emergency recess. Security forces surrounded Velthak, but they did not arrest him. Under council law, enforcers had immunity for actions taken during official duties. The Krell claimed Deho had made threatening movements. Some species believed this obvious lie. Most did not care enough to argue. News of the murder spread across the galaxy within hours. On Earth, in the gleaming capital city of New Seoul, billions of people watched the footage. They saw their ambassador present facts calmly. They saw him murdered for speaking truth. They saw the council do nothing. The human delegation requested an immediate tribunal. They wanted Velthak put on trial for murder. They wanted justice for Deho and his family. The council promised to consider the request, but weeks passed with no action. Various species offered apologies and condolences. The Krell offered monetary compensation for the unfortunate accident. Jiwoo stood before the council assembly 5 weeks after the murder. Her eyes were dry now, her voice steady and cold. "We require justice, not apologies. We require accountability, not money. Will the Council provide this?" The Council voted. 300 species participated. The result was clear. Velthok's actions were classified as justifiable enforcement action. He would face no trial. The matter was closed. Giwu looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. Some looked ashamed. Most looked indifferent. A few Krell representatives smiled with satisfaction. She straightened her shoulders and spoke her final words as a council diplomat. "The Galactic Council has made its position clear. You have shown us what you value and what you do not. Humanity acknowledges this decision. We will respond accordingly." The entire human delegation stood as one. 50 representatives from Earth and the colonies gathered their materials and walked toward the exit. Not one of them looked back. The chamber fell silent as they left. Within 6 hours, every human ship in Council space began returning home. Trade ports operated by humans closed their doors. Human merchants departed from alien markets. Human students left Council universities. Human scientists abandoned joint research projects. It happened simultaneously across the entire galaxy, as if humanity had rehearsed this moment. Within 2 days, humans had completely withdrawn from galactic civilization. Their embassies stood empty. Their communication channels went silent. Every colony sealed its borders. Earth itself stopped responding to messages. The Council was unconcerned. Humanity was young, barely 70 years as a spacefaring species. They were small, with only 47 registered colonies. They were unimportant in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Let them sulk in isolation. They would return when they needed trade and technology. 3 weeks later, a Krell patrol fleet arrived at New Jeju to investigate the silent colony. They found the planet abandoned. All 50,000 civilians had been evacuated. But something else was missing too. The mining infrastructure had been completely removed. Every refinery, every processing plant, every piece of equipment gone. Humans had erased their presence with surgical precision. The patrol commander ordered his ships to enter orbit. That was when sensors detected the buoys. Hundreds of them, forming a perfect sphere around the entire system. Military-grade sensor buoys, more advanced than anything in the Krell arsenal. The commander felt his first twinge of unease. He ordered his communications officer to hail the buoys. A message played in response, spoken in perfect Krell language. "This system is under human jurisdiction. Departure is advised." The commander laughed. Humans giving warnings to the mighty Krell? Absurd. He ordered his fleet forward at battle speed. The buoys activated together, their lights turning from blue to red. Then space itself seemed to ripple as they detonated in a coordinated pattern. A subspace cascade washed over the Krell ships. Every faster-than-light drive shut down simultaneously. Backup systems failed to restart. The fleet was stranded, drifting helplessly in normal space. The commander screamed orders, but his crew could do nothing. They were paralyzed. That was when the human ships appeared. They simply faded into existence, as if space itself gave birth to them. Sleek vessels painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light. Strange energy patterns rippled across their hulls. There were dozens of them surrounding the Krell fleet in perfect formation. They did not fire. They did not communicate. They simply watched with their sensor arrays active and weapons charged. 12 hours passed. The Krell crew sat in their disabled ships, helpless and terrified. Finally, another fleet arrived, Council rescue ships responding to the Krell distress signal. The human vessels vanished as quickly as they had appeared, disappearing back into whatever stealth technology concealed them. The Council rescue team found the Krell crews alive and unharmed. But their ships had been gutted. Every weapon system, every military computer core, every tactical database wiped clean or physically removed with precision cutting tools. The Krell patrol fleet had been turned into a group of helpless transport vessels on the flagship's bridge. The Council rescue captain found a message written in Krell's script on the main view screen. Just 2 words glowing in red letters. Lesson 1. Captain Hyenwu stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Soul's Pride. watching the Council's messages scroll across his screen. They were desperate now, begging for communication. Some demanded answers. Others offered negotiations. All of them went unanswered. Hyenwu had his orders. Maintain silence. Maintain readiness. Wait. Around his ship, hundreds of human vessels orbited in perfect formation. Below them, construction continued on something the Council did not know existed. Something that would change everything. The captain allowed himself a small smile as he deleted another. Pleading message from the Council Arbiter, the galaxy was confused. How could an entire species just vanish? Every attempt to reach human space was met with silence or polite warnings to leave. Trade ships that had dealt with humans for decades found the ear contacts gone. Scientists who had worked alongside human researchers received no replies. It was as if humanity had erased itself from the universe. Some council members suggested military action to force communication. These suggestions died quickly when intelligence reports arrived. Human space was not undefended. Every approach vector was monitored by sensor networks that made the new Jeju buoys look primitive. Any ship that came too close was tracked by weapons platforms of unknown capability. Nobody wanted to test what those platforms could do. Meanwhile, the Krell Dominion grew angrier. They had lost face when their patrol fleet was disabled. High Executor Thalvin, Supreme Commander of Krell military forces, demanded action. He called the humans cowards. He said they were hiding because they knew they could not fight a real war. He convinced the Krell leadership to teach humanity a lesson they would never forget. The Council tried to stop it. They sent messages warning the Krell to stand down. But the Krell had made their decision. They assembled a war fleet of 200 vessels, the largest military force deployed in Council space in 50 years. Thalvin himself took command, promising to occupy New Jeju by force and demand reparations for the illegal destruction of Krell. Military property, the fleet departed to great fanfare. Krell citizens celebrated. Their military would show these upstart humans their place. The Council watched nervously, hoping the humans would see reason and surrender before blood was spilled. But deep in Council intelligence offices, a few analysts were not so confident. They had studied the new Jeju incident carefully. The precision, the planning, the technology. One analyst named Song Hee wrote a report that her superiors ignored. The humans wanted us to see what they did to the patrol fleet. It was a demonstration, not a battle. What have they not shown us? Thalvin's fleet entered the new Jeju system, expecting resistance. They found nothing. The planet still sat abandoned. The sensor buoys were gone. There were no human ships visible. The High Executor declared victory before a single shot was fired. He ordered his troops to land and claim the planet for the Krell Dominion. The troop transports descended through the atmosphere. They landed in the empty cities humans had built. Krell soldiers marched through silent streets, planting their flags. Thalvin watched from orbit, satisfied. Then every sensor on every ship went haywire at once. The system's star flickered. For a moment, Thalvin thought his eyes were broken. But no, the star itself had flickered, as if something impossibly huge had passed in front of it. Then space tore open. That was the only way to describe it. Reality ripped apart as hundreds of human ships dropped out of stealth simultaneously. But they were not just in New Jeju. Reports flooded in from 3 other Krell border systems. Human fleets had appeared in all of them at exactly the same moment. Thalvin realized with growing horror that humanity had been watching everything. They had waited for the perfect moment to spring their trap. The human ships did not look like the sleek vessels from the patrol fleet incident. These were warships bristling with weapons and armor. They moved with impossible precision, as if controlled by a single mind. The Krell fleet tried to form battle lines, but human ships were already in position, cutting off every escape route. Then the weapons fire began. Humans did not use energy beams or missiles like other species. They fired solid metal rods at incredible speeds. These kinetic harpoons punched through Krell's shields as if they did not exist, ripping into ship hulls. Electromagnetic pulse mines detonated throughout the Krell formations, turning entire squadrons into dead metal drifting in space. Clouds of tiny machines and knots, the humans called them, swarmed over damaged vessels, eating through armor plating in minutes. But the most terrifying thing was how the humans fought. They anticipated every Krell tactic before it happened. When Krell ships tried to flank, human vessels were already in position. When Krell commanders ordered retreat, they found their escape routes blocked. It became clear that humanity had studied every detail of Krell military doctrine. They knew how the Krell thought, how they fought, what they would do before they did it. For hours. That was how long it took for the entire Krell War fleet to be disabled. Not destroyed, humanity could have killed every Krell soldier if they wanted. Instead, they disabled engines, destroyed weapons, cut life support to non-critical levels. Every Krell vessel was left drifting, crews alive but helpless and terrified. On the planet below, Krell soldiers huddled in human buildings, surrounded by automated defense systems that tracked their every movement but did not fire. Thalvin sat in his command chair, staring at blank screens. His pride, his career, his entire fleet gone in 4 hours. Then his personal communicator activated. A hologram appeared in front of him. It was a human woman in a dark uniform. She had short black hair and eyes that seemed to look through him. Her name tag read Admiral Sujin. She spoke in perfect Krell language. "Hi, Executor Thalvin. I am Admiral Sujin of the Human Defense Fleet. You killed one of ours in a place of peace. Your government refused to acknowledge the crime. You came to our home with warships, intending to kill more of us. We have responded appropriately." Thalvin tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. Sujin continued without pause. "Your fleet will be returned to you, minus all military technology. We are confiscating your weapons, your tactical systems, your military databases as partial compensation for the murder of Ambassador Deho. Your soldiers on the planet below will be transported back to your ships unharmed. You have 48 hours to leave human space. If you return with hostile intent, we will not be so merciful." The Admiral leaned forward slightly. "Consider this lesson too, High Executor. The first lesson was that we can find you anywhere. The second lesson is that we can defeat you anywhere. I suggest you think carefully about whether you want to learn lesson 3. The transmission ended. True to her word, Krell soldiers were transported back to their ships by human shuttles. The human fleet vanished back into stealth, leaving 200 disabled Krell warships drifting in space. Council rescue vessels took 3 weeks to tow them all home. When news reached the Galactic Council, panic spread like fire. The Krell were one of the most powerful military species in the galaxy. They had been utterly defeated without a single human casualty, and the humans had done it in 4 systems simultaneously, suggesting their fleet was far larger than anyone had imagined. Other species began asking questions. How long had humanity been preparing for this? Where did they get such advanced technology? How many ships did they really have? Intelligence agencies across the galaxy scrambled for answers. What they discovered made them panic even more. Before joining the Council 70 years ago, humans had already been spacefaring for over 300 years. They had only revealed themselves when they were ready. While maintaining a peaceful, diplomatic presence at the Council, they had been conducting secret research programs across dozens of hidden facilities. Worse, humanity's population was far larger than reported. Earth alone had 20 billion people, not the 5 billion listed in Council records. The human colonies numbered in the hundreds, not the 47 officially registered. Every piece of information humanity had given the Council over 70 years was carefully calculated misdirection. A researcher named Byung-ho published a report that went viral across galactic networks. Humans did not join the Council to learn from us. They joined to study us, to understand how we think, how we fight, how we can be defeated. They were patient because they were preparing, and we gave them 70 years to do it. The report concluded with a chilling assessment. We are not dealing with an angry young species throwing a tantrum. We are dealing with apex predators who have been planning this response since the day they arrived. They knew something like the Deho incident would eventually happen. They were ready. Then came the first defection. The Tyrellian Commonwealth, a mid-sized council member, announced their withdrawal. Ambassador Sang He, the analyst who had predicted human capabilities, explained their decision in a public broadcast. The council had 70 years to deliver justice for Ambassador Deho. They chose politics over principle. They chose to protect a murderer because it was convenient. Humanity chose action over words. They chose justice, even when it was hard. We know which side we want to stand with. Within days, 6 more species withdrew from the council and sought alliance with humanity. Others declared neutrality, unwilling to side against a species that had demonstrated such overwhelming power. The Galactic Council, which had maintained peace for thousands of years, was fracturing, and still humanity remained silent. No demands, no negotiations, just cold patient waiting. It was the silence of a predator that had already struck and was now watching to see what its prey would do next. The galaxy was learning what it meant when humans declared war, and they were very, very afraid. 3 months after Ambassador Deho's death, every species in the galaxy received the same transmission at the same moment. It was impossible to block or filter. Human technology simply overrode every communication system, from massive council relay stations to personal data devices. On screens across billions of worlds, a man's face appeared. Premier Taeyang was the elected leader of the United Human Government. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and a face that showed the weight of his responsibility. He spoke in a calm, clear voice that was simultaneously translated into every major galactic language. People of the galaxy, I am Premier Taeyang of humanity. 3 months ago, Council Enforcer Prime Velthek murdered our ambassador in cold blood, in front of hundreds of witnesses. The Galactic Council refused to provide justice. They classified murder as justifiable action. We have shown you what we think of that decision. He paused, his expression hardening. We are not interested in apologies. We are not interested in compensation. We require justice. You have 1 week to deliver Veltak to human custody for trial. If you do not comply, we will demonstrate why justice matters to us. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted into furious debate. The Krell refused absolutely to surrender Velthak. They called the human demand an insult to Krell's sovereignty. Other species argued for compliance, terrified of human retaliation. But in the end, council law was clear. Member species could not be forced to surrender their citizens. The council voted to deny the human demand. They cited sovereignty laws, diplomatic immunity, and the principle of non-interference. They truly believed humanity would not act. Starting a war over one person's death seemed irrational. They still did not understand humans. Veltok himself was hiding on Drekther, a heavily defended Krell fortress world. The planet was surrounded by orbital defense platforms. Its surface bristled with shield generators and anti-air weapons. An entire garrison of elite Krell warriors protected the fortress where Velthak lived in luxurious rooms. It's convinced he was safe. Lieutenant Yang-Su led a team of 12 human operators. They were the best infiltrators humanity had, trained for missions that seemed impossible. Their assignment: extract Velthak from the most heavily defended location in Krell space. Command gave them 2 weeks to plan. Youngsu took 3 days. The team approached Drokther in a stealth ship, smaller than most shuttles. It was built from materials that bent light and absorbed sensor waves. To any detection system, it simply did not exist. They slipped past the orbital platforms like shadows through sunlight. Entry to the planet was the hardest part. The atmosphere was monitored constantly, but Youngsu's team had studied Krell technology for months. They knew that the Krell used automated systems with predictable patterns. The team timed their descent during a sensor rotation cycle, a 30-second window when 2 detection grids briefly overlapped. They fell through the atmosphere like a meteor. Pulling up just meters above the ground, the fortress sat on a cliff overlooking a dark ocean. Krell architects had assumed any attack would come from the air or the main gates. They never considered that someone might use the ocean itself. Youngsu's team swam through underwater caves that connected to the fortress's water supply. The Krell had never secured these tunnels because they believed no one would be crazy enough to use them. Inside the fortress, the team moved through maintenance corridors. They had maps of every passage stolen from Krell databases during the earlier fleet engagement. They bypassed biometric locks, using genetic samples harvested from captured Krell soldiers. Every guard patrol had a schedule. Every security camera had a blind spot. The humans moved like ghosts through a place that was supposed to be impenetrable. Velthic's chambers were on the highest floor, protected by a squad of elite guards. Youngsu's team waited in the walls, literally inside the structure itself, using cutting tools that made no sound. They monitored Velthoc's routine for 6 hours. He went to sleep at 0300 local time. After consuming enough alcohol to sedate a small creature, at 0310, the team cut through the wall directly into Velthic's bedroom. 12 armored figures emerged from the shadows, weapons trained on the sleeping Krell. Velthic's eyes snapped open. He reached for an alarm button on his nightstand. A stun pulse hit him before his hand moved an inch. A precisely calibrated charge that paralyzed without killing. Youngsu knelt beside the immobilized Krell and spoke in perfect Krell language. You killed an innocent man who came to speak peace. You murdered him because you were angry. Because you could. Now you face justice. The extraction was flawless. Youngsu's team retraced their path through the fortress, carrying the paralyzed Velthac between them. By the time Krell's security realized their prisoner was gone, the human team was already off-world, burning toward the nearest jump point. They vanished into faster-than-light travel before Krell. Pursuit ships could even launch. Humanity did not hide what they had done. Instead, they broadcast everything. The trial of Veltic was transmitted live across every galactic network. Billions of beings watched as the former enforcer stood before a human tribunal. The trial took place in a courtroom on Earth. In the city of New Sol, the room was simple. With wooden benches and clean white walls, Judge Yunji presided, a stern woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much pain. She ran the trial with meticulous care, ensuring every rule was followed, every right respected. The prosecution presented evidence methodically. Sensor logs showed Deho was unarmed when Veltok fired. Medical testimony proved the disruptor was deliberately set to lethal power. Psychological evaluations demonstrated Velthic's history of violence and disregard for other species. Video footage showed the murder from 4 different angles. Velthec, S. Defense attorney, human, signed to ensure fair representation, argued counsel law, and diplomatic immunity. Judge Yunji's response became one of the most replayed moments in galactic history. You are not being tried under counsel law. You murdered a human citizen in cold blood. You are being tried under human law. Counsel immunity means nothing here. Your victim could not hide behind human law to protect himself from you. You cannot hide behind counsel law to protect yourself from us. The trial lasted 3 days. It was fair to the point of being painful. Velthak was given every opportunity to defend himself, to present evidence, to call witnesses. Multiple species representatives were allowed to observe and verify that the proceedings followed proper legal standards. The verdict surprised no. 1. Guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence surprised everyone. Life imprisonment under humane conditions with periodic review by independent observers. Not execution. Not torture. Simply imprisonment. With the possibility of eventual release if he showed genuine remorse and rehabilitation. After the sentencing, Premier Taeyang addressed the galaxy again. He stood in the same courtroom where Velthak had been tried. This is what justice looks like. Not politics. Not expediency. Not revenge. Justice. We gave the council 3 months to provide it. They refused. So we crossed their space, breached their most secure fortress, extracted a murderer, and gave him a fair trial. All without killing a single Krell soldier. All while following our own laws precisely. Let that sink in before continuing. Some of you think we overreacted. That one death is not worth war. You are wrong. If one death means nothing, then all deaths mean nothing. We fight for this principle. Every life has value. Every victim deserves justice. This is not negotiable. The Premier's expression hardened. Let this be a lesson to every species in the galaxy. Humanity will not tolerate the murder of our people. We will cross any distance. We will breach any defense. We will overcome any obstacle to ensure accountability. This is not a threat. This is a promise. And we have proven we keep our promises. The transmission ended with a compilation of human operations. The disabled Krell patrol fleet, the infiltrated fortress, the successful extraction, the fair trial. It was a demonstration of capability unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The message was clear. If we can do this, imagine what else we can do in the wake of the trial. 7 more species withdrew from the Council. Some joined humanity's growing coalition. Others declared neutrality, unwilling to stand against a species that could strike anywhere with impunity. The Galactic Council's authority was crumbling like sand in the wind. The Krell, humiliated beyond measure, called for total war against humanity. But when they tried to rally support, they found few allies. Most species were terrified. If humans could sneak into the most secure fortress in Krell space and extract one target without casualties, what could they do to planets? 2 entire civilizations? A xenopsychologist named Menesio published an analysis that swept through academic circles. Humans are persistence predators. On their homeworld, they hunted by running prey to exhaustion over days or weeks. They bring this same mentality to everything they do. They do not need to destroy you quickly. They will pursue you forever, wear you down, mantle you piece by piece, until nothing remains. The Krell made the mistake of killing one human. Now they are learning that humans never forget, and they never stop. The galaxy was beginning to understand what humanity meant when they said war. It was not the brief, explosive conflicts other species fought. It was not about territory or resources. Human war was about principles, about making a point so clear, so undeniable, it could never be forgotten. And the terrifying thing was that humanity had barely started. Everything so far, the disabled fleets, the infiltration, the trial, was just the demonstration. The proof that they could act whenever and wherever they chose. The real war had not yet begun. The Krell Dominion was dying. Not from military defeat, they still had fleets and armies. They were dying from shame. Every species in the galaxy had watched humans humiliate them repeatedly. First the patrol fleet, then the war fleet, then the infiltration of their most secure fortress. Krell citizens rioted in the streets, demanding action from their government. Krell military commanders faced disgrace and ritual suicide. In desperation, the Krell military made a terrible decision. They could not defeat humanity's military. They would strike at something humans valued, their civilians. They would show the galaxy that humans were not invincible. That human blood could be spilled just as easily as anyone else's. A Krell Black Operations fleet departed in secret. 12 stealth ships, crews sworn to silence, mission files erased from official records. Their target was Hanbit Station, a human agricultural colony on the edge of human space. It was not a military base. It had minimal defenses. 30,000 people lived there, farmers, teachers, engineers, children. They grew food and researched improved crop strains. They were no threat to anyone. The Krell fleet arrived without warning. They did not demand surrender. They did not give civilians time to evacuate. They simply opened fire. Kinetic bombardment from orbit, turning peaceful farms into craters. Energy weapons cutting through residential buildings. Missiles targeting schools and hospitals. The attack lasted 2 hours before human defense forces could respond. By then, 12,000 people were dead. Another 8,000 were injured. Hanbit Station burned. The survivors sent one message before their communications tower collapsed. They are killing everyone. Please help us. Across human space, the message was received. On Earth, in the halls of government, Premier Taeyong watched footage of the attack with tears running down his face. In military headquarters, Admiral Sujin stared at casualty reports, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. In homes across hundreds of colonies, humans watched their fellow citizens die and felt something ancient, awaken inside them. Until now, humanity's war had been measured, precise, designed to prove a point without unnecessary casualties. Ended the moment Krell weapons killed children on Hanbet Station. Admiral Sujin was promoted to Supreme Commander of all human military forces. She addressed the combined fleets from the bridge of the supercarrier, Indomitable, a vessel so massive it could carry 50 smaller ships inside its hull. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. Around her ship, thousands of vessels waited for orders. They wanted to see what happens when they hurt our families, Sujin said. Her voice transmitted to every human military installation. They wanted to provoke us into becoming monsters. We will not give them that satisfaction, but we will show them what happens when they cross the line from war to slaughter. We will show them the difference between humanity's mercy and humanity's wrath. What followed was not war. It was systematic dismantling of an empire. Human fleets emerged from stealth across Krell space. Not dozens of ships, thousands. The true scale of humanity's military became visible for the first time. The Krell realized with horror that every ship they had seen before was just a fraction of human strength. While pretending to be a small, peaceful species, humanity had built the largest military force in the galaxy. But humans did not target Krell cities or civilians. Instead, they struck infrastructure. Power generation facilities that provided electricity to entire continents went dark. Water purification plants stopped working. Food distribution networks collapsed, transportation hubs were destroyed, communication satellites were systematically eliminated. Within 2 weeks, the Krell Dominion faced humanitarian disaster. Billions of Krell civilians had no power, no clean water, no food deliveries. But they were alive. Humans could have killed them easily. Instead, humans left them helpless and dependent. Captain Jae-hoon commanded an assault carrier in the Third Fleet. His ship destroyed a Krell military command center on the planet Krell Prime itself, the heart of the Dominion. Before the attack, humans broadcast evacuation warnings on all frequencies. They gave civilians 6 hours to leave the area. Only when the zone was empty did human weapons fire. Jae-hoon explained the strategy. To his crew, "We are not here to become monsters. We are here to prove that justice can include mercy. We will destroy their ability to make war. We will not destroy their people. Show them what they could never show us." The psychological effect was devastating. Krell civilians watched human forces destroy military targets while protecting civilian lives. They watched humans provide more warning and care than their own government had shown. Some Krell populations began to question who the real enemy was. Meanwhile, Krell military commanders faced an impossible situation. They could not defend everything. Human attacks came from multiple directions simultaneously. Human intelligence was perfect. They knew the location of every military asset, every hidden base, every secret installation. Defending against humans was like fighting fog. You could see them coming, but you could not stop them. Border colonies began surrendering to human forces. They calculated that human occupation was better than slow starvation. General Wanshik accepted the surrender of an entire Krell border sector without firing a single shot. The Krell admiral, who surrendered, an old warrior named Carthon, asked why humans fought so hard for one dead ambassador. Wanshik's answer was simple: because if we do not, the next death means nothing too, and the one after that. Eventually all deaths mean nothing, and we become what you are. We fight so that every life matters. That is the difference between us. The Krell Dominion began to fracture. Colony worlds declared independence. Military officers defected with their ships. The central government lost control as regions decided survival was more important than loyalty. The empire that had seemed so powerful was falling apart from within. Then Intelligence Officer Hae-won made a discovery that changed everything. She was analyzing communication intercepts from Krell military channels when she found something unexpected. Orders for the Hanbit Station attack had not come from the Krell government. They came from rogue military factions hardliners, who believed only total war could defeat humanity. The official Krell government had actually been trying to negotiate surrender, but they could not do so publicly without losing control of their military. The hardliners had gambled that attacking civilians would unite Krell citizens behind war. Instead, it united them behind survival. HAE-1 leaked the evidence to Krell civilian networks. The revelation ignited fury across Krell worlds. Their government had lied to them. Rogue military commanders had started a war they could not win and destroyed their own empire's infrastructure in the process. Krell civilians, watching their children starve while military leaders lived in comfort, decided they had had enough. Riots spread across Krell Prime. The government building was stormed by crowds of desperate citizens. The military tried to restore order but found soldiers unwilling to fire on their own families. Within 3 days, the Krell government collapsed. A provisional government formed. Composed of civilian leaders who had opposed the war from the beginning, their first official act was to request human mediation. Premier Taeyong met with Krell representatives on a neutral station. Krell delegation expected harsh terms. They expected occupation and humiliation. What they received surprised them. Humanity's terms were strict but fair. Velthic's accomplices would face trial. Full reparations would be paid to Hanbit Station survivors and families of the dead. The Krell military would be completely disarmed, with human peacekeepers monitoring the process. Democratic reforms would be implemented under international oversight. And the Krell government would publicly acknowledge responsibility for Daeho's murder and apologize to his family. But the terms also included something unexpected: human commitment to rebuilding Krell infrastructure. Food aid during the transition. Protection of Krell colonies from opportunistic neighbors who might try to take advantage of their weakness. Medical assistance for Krell civilians who had suffered during the war. The Krell representatives stared in confusion. "Why?" one of them asked. "Why help us after what we did?" Taeyong leaned forward. "Because we are not you. We could destroy you completely. Weak attack. Eat everything and leave you with nothing. But that would make us conquerors, not liberators. We want the Krell people to survive and prosper. We want you to become our partners, not our subjects. The only way to achieve lasting peace is to help our former enemies become better. That is the human way." The Krell accepted the terms. They had no choice. But as time passed, many Krell came to believe they had received better terms than they deserved. With the Krell defeated, humanity turned its attention to the Galactic Council. Premier Taeyong broadcast one final message to the galaxy. "We have demonstrated our capability. We have shown our restraint. Now we offer a choice: reform or irrelevance. The Galactic Council can continue protecting murderers and enabling tyranny, or it can become an institution worthy of its name. You have 1 year to decide. After that, humanity will build a new order. You can be part of it, or you can watch from outside." The message was clear. The age of the old council was over. The age of humanity had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. 1 year had passed since Premier Taeyong's ultimatum. The galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council, once the supreme authority in known space, had dissolved. Too many species had withdrawn. Too much trust had been lost. In the end, the remaining council members voted to disband rather than maintain a pretense of authority they no longer possessed. In its place, a new organization emerged, the Coalition of Free Worlds. It was founded on principles that seemed revolutionary to a galaxy used to power politics and convenient compromises. Genuine equality between species. Transparent decision-making with public oversight. Accountability for leaders who broke laws. And most importantly, absolute protection for the rights of individuals. Regardless of their species or status, humanity had written the founding charter. But they deliberately designed the coalition to prevent any single species from dominating. Power was distributed across multiple councils and committees. Decisions required consensus, not majority rule. No species could veto actions alone. It was messy and slow, but it was fair. Ambassador Ji Woo represented humanity at the coalition's founding ceremony. She stood on a stage in the new coalition headquarters, a massive station built in neutral space. Around her, Representatives from 84 species gathered, some former council members, some newly contacted civilizations that humans had discovered during their 70 years of secret. Expansion Guiyu looked older now. Her hair showed gray at the temples. Lines marked her face from months of stress and grief. But her eyes carried quiet satisfaction as she looked out at the assembly. She thought of Deho, her mentor and friend, who had died on a council chamber floor. She thought of the 12,000 victims of Handbit Station. She thought of every human who had died to reach this moment. We gather today not to celebrate victory, but to honor sacrifice, she said. Her voice carried across the station by perfect acoustics. My friend, Ambassador Deho, believed in a better galaxy. He believed that different species could live together in peace and justice. He was murdered for that belief. But his death was not meaningless. It sparked a change that will echo through history. This coalition exists because one good man died, and humanity decided his death would matter. The assembly stood in silence for 1 minute, honoring the dead who had brought them to this moment. Then the founding documents were signed, and the coalition of free worlds officially began. The Krell Dominion was now the Krell Commonwealth, a democratic federation protected by human peacekeepers while they rebuilt their military under new civilian control. The transition had been difficult. Old hardliners still resisted. Some Krell citizens struggled to accept defeat. But slowly, something new was growing in Krell society. Commander Xian Wu was stationed on Drachthar, the fortress world where humans had once extracted Veltak. Now it hosted a joint military academy where Krell officers learned from human instructors. Xian Wu taught strategy and ethics to young Krell, who had grown up in a culture that valued strength over justice. One of his students, a lieutenant named Victor, approached him after class. Commander, may I ask a question? The young Krell's scales were bright green, marking his youth. He spoke human language with a thick accent, but growing confidence. Of course, Xian Wu replied. Why do humans treat us with such respect? We killed your ambassador. We attacked your colonies. We were your enemies. Yet you rebuild our infrastructure, teach our soldiers, protect our borders. Why? Xian Wu considered his answer carefully. Because we remember our own history. Humans fought terrible wars against each other for thousands of years. Brother against brother. Nation against nation. We killed billions of our own kind before we learned a simple truth. Enemies today can be friends tomorrow, but only if you treat them with dignity. You are not our enemies now. You are our students, and someday you will be our equals. That is worth any amount of patience. Victor nodded slowly, processing this. My grandfather fought in the war. He says humans are the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy because you fight for ideas, not just survival. He says ideas are harder to defeat than weapons. Your grandfather is wise, Xian Wu said with a slight smile. Remember that when you become an officer, the weapon matters less than the reason you draw it. On New Jeju, the colony that had sparked the original conflict, a memorial was being unveiled. The planet had been resettled, with both human and Krell families now living side by side. The memorial stood at the center of the main city, visible from everywhere. It was simple. A black stone wall engraved with names. Ambassador Deho's name at the top. The 12,000 victims of Hanbet stationed below. And at the bottom, the names of Krell civilians who had died during the war. Because humans believed all victims deserved remembrance. A plaque beside the wall read, "These lives mattered. Their deaths were not forgotten. Their sacrifice built a better galaxy." Deho's daughter, Soyoung, had grown up watching her father's murder on video feeds. She had been 12 years old when Velthak fired his weapon. Now she was 21, a junior diplomat serving in the Coalition's mediation division. She stood before the memorial with her mother and younger brother, reading the names etched in stone. "Do you think he would be proud?" her brother asked quietly. "Of what happened after?" Soyoung thought about her father's gentle voice, his endless patience, his belief that words could solve any problem. "I think he would be sad that war was necessary. But yes, I think he would be proud that we never lost ourselves in the fighting, that we stayed human." She touched her father's name on the stone. His death meant something. That is what he would have wanted. At Canada. At universities across the coalition, the human lesson had become required study. Military academies analyzed humanity's strategy. Diplomatic schools examined their negotiation tactics. Political science departments debated their governmental philosophy. Everyone wanted to understand how one species had changed the galaxy in just 1 year. Professor Chalsu taught xenopolitics at the new coalition. Academy on Earth. His course on human. Military philosophy was the most popular class on campus, attended by students from 60 different species. Today's lecture focused on the Krell War. Humans did not win through superior numbers, though they had them, Chalsu explained. Pacing before a holographic display showing battle formations, they did not win through better technology, though they had that too. They won through moral clarity. Every action they took could be justified. Every target they struck had military value. Every civilian they spared proved they were liberators, not conquerors. A student, a young Tyrellian with blue skin, raised her hand. But Professor, was the war not about revenge? They fought because of one murdered ambassador. Chalsu shook his head. That is what many species believed. But the war was never about revenge. It was about establishing a principle that justice matters more than convenience, that the strong cannot murder the weak without consequence. Humans could have killed Velthok immediately. Instead, they gave him a fair trial. They could have destroyed the Krell. Instead, they helped them rebuild. Every action reinforced their central message. We are not here to conquer. We are here to create a system where murder has consequences and justice is real. He brought up an image of Admiral Sujin accepting the Krell's surrender. This is not military genius in the traditional sense. This is strategic philosophy, and it is far more powerful than any weapon. On Earth, in the capital city of New Seoul, Premier Taeyong prepared to step down. He had served as leader throughout the crisis, bearing the weight of every decision, every death, every consequence. Now it was time for someone else to carry that burden. His final address as premier was broadcast across the coalition. When Ambassador Daeho was murdered, humanity faced a choice, Taeyong said, standing in the same chamber where he had declared war. We could accept injustice and remain part of a broken system, or we could demand better and face the consequences. We chose the harder path. We chose principle over convey. Indians, he paused, looking directly into the camera. Some call what followed a war. I call it a revolution. Not a revolution of violence for its own sake, but a revolution of ideas. The idea that every life has value. The idea that justice matters. The idea that the powerful have a responsibility to protect the weak, not exploit them. We did not want war. We wanted justice. When justice was denied, we took it. But we never lost sight of who we are. We showed the galaxy that strength without morality is tyranny, but morality without strength is helplessness. We found the balance. His voice grew softer. Ambassador Daeho died believing in a better future. We built it for him. Not through revenge, but through ensuring his death meant something. That every death means something. That is the legacy we leave. At the edge of human space, Admiral Sujin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable. The massive carrier was now the flagship of the Coalition Defense Fleet. Its crew drawn from 30 different species working together. Sujin watched them coordinate with practiced efficiency. Humans and Krell and Tyrellians and others side by side. A young Krell officer approached her station. His name was certain, and he had joined the Coalition military as part of the new exchange program. Admiral, may I ask you something? Go ahead, Sujin replied, her attention on the fleet movements displayed before her. What did humanity learn from the war? Everyone studies what you taught us. But what did you learn? Sujin considered the question. She thought about the disabled fleets, the infiltration of Drakethur, the systematic dismantling of the Krell military. She thought about the 12,000 dead on Hanbit Station, and the choice to show mercy anyway. We learned that the galaxy was waiting, she said finally. Waiting for someone to prove that might does not make right. That right makes might. We proved it. Now we make sure no one forgets. She looked out at the stars, at the peaceful formation of ships from species that had been enemies just 1 year ago. And we learned that humanity does not declare war lightly. But when we do, we win. Not just the battles, the peace that follows. That is the real victory. Certain nodded, absorbing her words. Around them, the bridge crew worked in harmony, a living example of what the war had achieved. Not conquest, not domination, but transformation. The galaxy had learned its lesson. When the Council shed human blood, they did not just provoke a war. They sparked a revolution. Humanity, the patient newcomers who had been dismissed as insignificant, became the architects of a new galactic order. One built on the principle that every life matters, that every death must have meaning, that justice is not optional. The age of convenient compromise was over. The age of accountability had begun. And humanity, having proven they could wage war better than anyone, now showed they could wage peace even better. They helped former enemies rebuild. They shared technology freely. They defended the weak without demanding submission. Across the coalition, on hundreds of worlds, in dozens of languages, a new saying emerged. When someone asked why they should help a stranger or defend someone weak, the answer was always the same. Because we are not the old council. We are the coalition. And in the coalition, every life matters. Ambassador Deho had died for that principle, murdered by someone who believed might made right. His death had proven them wrong. And the galaxy he left behind was better for it. The stars shone on a changed universe, one where justice was real, where the strong protected the weak, where death had meaning and life had value. It was not perfect, but it was better. And it would keep getting better, because humanity had shown the way. That was the true lesson. Not how to wage war, but how to wage peace. And in the end, peace was the only victory that mattered.